Welcome to the Belly Dance Stories podcast, a multimedia production directed by Alexandra Molina and Valerie Molinari.
You will hear inspiring conversations and learn about the ways belly dance has become a powerful channel of transformation in people's lives. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Belly Dance Stories podcast. We have today Isabella Villarroel, and we're super excited to have you on. We are going to be talking a lot about your performance from Belly Dance Stories Volume 2. So thank you so much for being here. We can't wait to have this conversation.
Thank you, ladies, for having me. It's such an honor and such a pleasure to be back here talking to you guys again. So excited.
Aw, thanks, Isa. I'm going to tell our listeners a little bit about you. So I'm going to read a bio about Isa. Throughout her life, Isabella has found creative expression to be an outlet for all of her emotions. Her art has always encompassed a journey through time, where she's been and where she's going. A Venezuelan-born, Miami-raised designer who works to bind the past, present, and future, combining elegance and timeless aesthetics with modern and unique qualities. Through her experimentations with dance, paint, sculpture, and writing, Isabella has always enjoyed the beauty that lies in our femininity while getting her hands a little dirty. She aims to explore the wild woman within while still catering to our natural elegance, fragility, and poise.
Nice.
I love this bio. It's so beautiful and well written. It's so you, Isa. Man. Isa, tell our listeners a little bit about your belly dance story and your personal connection to dance.
So my belly dance story, it all began when I was 14 years old with one of my best friends growing up. We started, our first class was with Alex. And I think belly dance was such an important part of growing up and just that adolescence period going from middle school to high school. Especially growing up in Miami, I think everything is very plastic. You know, we have an influence of social media. And it's very easy at such a young age to compare yourself to so many other women, you know. And I think I think it was Volume 1 that you said, what does the belly dance body look like? And that was such an impactful thing because that kind of defined that time period of my life. You know, it was, what is the perfect body? What is, you know, what should you look like? And it was this period of comparing yourself to other women, to other girls around my age, and also social media at this time. I'm sure you guys are aware, younger girls start dressing much older, right? So it was this kind of battle of like, you know, I am me, and it was learning to love me. And stepping into my first belly dance class was so huge for me because I saw so many women looking so different, but all of them so confident and so in love with the dance and with themselves, you know? That feeling of dancing in front of the mirror and playing with a veil or moving your arms around. You're moving, but you feel confident, you feel good. And that for me was so huge because as a 14-year-old, you know, your mind is so, you know, limited to what you've explored and what you know. And for me, in my case, it was I have to be, you know, skinny. I have to be this. I have to have pretty legs. I have to have a tiny waist and the clothes that I should wear. But obviously, we're all different and we're all so beautiful in our differences. But belly dance really helped me embrace that and embrace that we are all different and you can love yourself without having to look like the Victoria's Secret model, you know?
The beauty standards.
Yeah, exactly.
We also started as teenagers, so we totally understand where you're getting from. And I'm sure that, yes, Miami is a particular city that it's very obsessed with beauty. So I imagine that also dance felt like very refreshing when you enter to a room where you have a lot of variety of ages too. Like high school, you're usually surrounded by people from your own age, but then you come to a belly dance class and then you have the opportunity also to share experiences with women from different ages.
Absolutely.
So you were part of the intro of the Belly Dance Stories Volume 2 show, and that was intentional because us as director in Volume 1, we ended the show with the dancers of Belly by Kelly, which they're like teenagers or young adults. In this case, for volume 1, we wanted it to start with a young woman because the majority of the topics that we had in this show were about women's struggles nowadays. And we wanted it to start kind of like in a chronology, right, of ages. And we picked your performance because you had a beautiful story that we're going to play it here for everyone. And it set the perfect tone also for what our intention was with the audience. Okay.
From childhood to adolescence and into womanhood, we sew together generations of discomfort, wandering eyes, walls of shame. We create a cloak as a sanctuary to nurture our free spirit, to dance and to live, piecing together what makes us who we are, honoring and defending the stories of the women that didn't have a voice.
So, Isa, when you came to me with your story, you had written many versions of your text, and all of them shouted out to me this universal message of embracing the generations before you and the women in your life today. And I had to go to Val and I said, Val, this might be a really good either prologue or to have it at the end of the show. Because when we go in and we curate the performance, the theater show, the production, the beginning, the middle, and the end, that's all very tailored to who is performing. So we have to hear all the stories first before we get to the main idea. And yours was shouting it out, and it was beautiful because you have a background in fashion and you were weaving in both of your passions, fashion and dance. So we want to know a little bit more about your vision, what you were thinking, where you were coming from, and maybe what you thought that final product might look like.
Yeah, so I'm sure you can ask, well, we're all, not originally from the States, but generally speaking, back in the day, there used to be home ec classes, right? Where generally women would go and they would learn how to sew, they would learn how to cook, and all of these things. So I think sewing is a very feminine thing that has brought women together for centuries. There's this like the historical factor of women sitting around and sewing quilts, and just in history, these, sewing as a group is, we're providers in that sense. It's almost a very maternal thing to sew and to piece things together and to create. I think creating is I think it feeds into our fertility, for example, with the ability to create life. I think it's a very divine thing of just creating. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where the two kind of get married in that sense of just creating. So for me, I really wanted to incorporate that as a whole, just sewing, and which is something, that I'm very passionate in, and also incorporate the fact that I'm sewing together stories. I'm sewing together. My performance was about, the theme of sexual abuse. And that is something that I think every woman, from either a very small instance to very horrible ones, it's something that we experience, just being sexualized in general. And this was a story that I didn't want to be mine. I wanted it to be ours, So I wanted it to be something that we are piecing together. We are weaving together these stories of women and things that have happened in the past that they didn't have the voice, and the Me Too movement and all of the platform that we have nowadays. And it was a matter of just piecing together all of that they weren't able to express and they weren't able to grieve in as a community. They had to kind of hold these things in. So for me, it was really just sharing the story that we have to, ride off of each other a little bit and really stay strong as a community. These stories, these experiences, like you were saying, the rest of the show was very much about different women's struggles. And I think that all of those are things that, to a certain degree, we've all experienced, right? So I think that yeah, it was a really important part of the whole thing to just incorporate that. And then the cloak that I talk about is just we put on a mask, you know. Sometimes we put on a mask when we go out, when we, you know, walk around the street, when we do anything, we have a mask on of who am I? What am I presenting myself to the public? And it's not always who I really truly want to be, but it's who I have to, you know, what mask I have to put on for safety, right? For emotional safety, for physical safety, etc. So that's kind of the cloak that I was talking about there, that these stories that we weave together, we put them on as a cloak when we walk out. And it's a face of me, you know, it's a part of me, but it's not my whole self. And that whole self kind of comes out as a butterfly, right? So that's when I take off the cloak in the performance. And it's just like this is truly who I am, the wild woman, you know, the full, you know, multifaceted person that we all are, but that we kind of have to hide within this cloak sometimes for our own safety.
Very beautiful. I think it's a very strong metaphor about also the expectations that this society has of us as women, and the agendas that we are constantly kind of like battling in order for us to find our own identity. And I think it's very impressive that you, as a young dancer, you are so aware of how these narratives also affect us as women. So that's very beautiful.
I think I remember talking about how you were going to create the cloak, and we went through certain ideas for it. But I remember thinking it was also like an armor. It was a protector, an armor, but it was also something that was shared. So it wasn't an individual process, because you were thinking of the people around you in your community. And that to me was very empowering. And so I told you, we need to make a video because the other element of your performance was also video art. So I pitched my idea to you. I pitched my idea to Val. I said, first, before I do anything, let me ask. And it was beautiful because I came to your house where you worked, and I was able to, while you were working on your cloak, capture a few moments of you actually, you know, working the fabric and the little piece. So we dubbed it over with your audio, and that's how your performance came. And it was dramatic, and it was fantastic, and it was powerful. It also matched with the prologue from before, because we also had Mara work on a video about in Miami, and kind of from a bird's eye view, setting the scene for where we were for our production.
It was a collage of different images that were, how to say it, bringing our audience to a context, to a location, which was Miami. There were sceneries of Miami, but there were also sceneries about our dance classes. So, and then it had this beautiful canoe music that sounded very reflective, and it gives that meditative ambience. And then we started with your video. Or video.
And the audio with the video. So I think that it was really special the way that yours overlapped, and the universal feminine strength theme that you had going matched and it flowed into the rest of the performance.
From a zoom out to a zoom in.
Yes, exactly.
And I think it was very powerful to bring these women into my home, you know, into my workspace. The audience, it was very personal for me, because it was like, well, this is my room. So it was very special, because it was kind of the whole process from the sketches to the sewing to the, you know, steaming, and we even had some tea, and it was just that whole, I think it really tied into the whole sewing thing and the community of us creating things together. So I think it was very special to have the audience be able to come into, you know, my vulnerable place, right? Which is what my performance was about, taking off that cloak and showing the vulnerability, but being strong in it, right? So I think it was very, very powerful.
And now, how do you feel after your performance? Did all your visions come true? And also the music choice, I forgot. Can I overlap that in there? The music choice and then your outcome of how you felt?
Yeah. So I think that the music choice, for example, when I first pitched, I know you guys, released a form of like to fill it out if you wanted to participate. And I was like, well, you know what, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it now. So I submitted, and the song that I was going to play was nothing like the one that I ended up doing. And it was kind of, I think, so much better after Alex suggested that one. It was so much more theatrical and so much more powerful than the one that I was going to do, which was just a quick kind of, fun little like drum solo kind of song. And this one just ended up being so much more to play with, I think. And I think the overall outcome, I was thinking about it a couple of days ago, and I was like, wow, when I last time I was here in this room, when I recorded my intro, I was like, gosh, I wish I would have recorded it after, because I feel so much more connected to it and so much stronger after, that was my first solo, by the way. My first solo was opening the show, and it was a little, daunting at first, and sharing the story and the vulnerability of it all. And after I did that, I got my first tattoo, which is, it's my grandmother's handwriting that says her, and it's a tattoo for all the women in my life. And it's all of the women that have, come to create me, and the women that I will someday, impact. And I think that performance was one of those things that was just, I remember taking off that cloak and being like, wow, like, it's so real. And it was so empowering and so impactful for me to be able to share the stage with such amazing women and amazing dancers, and really just set it up for them and let them know that they're safe, and let them know that, this is a story that we all share. And yeah.
What an amazing way to step into your 20s, because you had just turned 20 and you mentioned that to me. You said, this is going to be my first solo. It's now or never, like you said. And I am going to be 20. I'm excited for this new decade of my life, and I want to honor this past, but also the present and the future, because you saw so many things, in your 20s. I know you see it now, and I know you're in it now, but what a special way to honor that.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty sure it was within the span of a week, if not 2 weeks. It was my birthday was earlier in April, but Belly Dance Stories was the same. I think it was 2 days after my fashion show, and just my fashion school graduation, which was kind of huge. And I think that's where the whole idea kind of came into place. And I was like, this is going to be like my graduation into womanhood almost, this is going to be, this, I'm doing it for me. And I think that was a time of my life. And Alex knows this because we would just talk all the time. And it was like so therapeutic to be dancing every week and to be talking to Alex through it all. It was a really hard time from January until April. I think I was going through a lot in my head, being my graduating semester. I think there was a lot of things on my plate. And I think that dancing was one of those things that I just needed it. I needed to take, a couple hours of the week to just stop and dance and move and really do something for me, and something for the inner me, right? I think I was checking a lot of boxes in my head of what I had planned for the future, what I had planned for that year of, graduating fashion school, my first bridal collection, which was huge for me. And I think that dancing was one of those things that really allowed me to not forget where I came from, not forget my story and my message at the end of the day.
I love this transformation. And I love also that you're sharing to remind everyone the struggles of being a young woman. Because going to college, finishing high school, the amount of pressures that we have on ourselves, it's humongous, right? Because you're supposed to be also creating your future, but that comes also with a lot of hard work. I want to pivot the conversation to talk about your fashion design, okay? And I'm very interested because you're talking about creating this clock. And I feel like fashion also gives us the opportunity to build our personality in a visible, real, tangible way. And there's also that type of work that we do when we're solo dancers. So how do you think your creative voice benefits from your fashion design background plus also being a dancer?
So I think that fashion in general is one of those things that is so powerful because you get to wake up every morning and decide, who do I want to be? You know, the second, whether we like it or not, the second you look at someone, you already kind of come up with a background for them. You know, I see what, you know, how do they style themselves? What are they wearing? What shoes are they wearing?
It's a language. Yeah.
Correct. So you are introducing yourself to the world every day, you know, and someone that is well dressed, whatever your definition of well dressed can be, you know, someone can create a story for you without even meeting you, without even talking to you. And it's so important because it's important to know, who am I representing right now? You know, what side of myself am I representing right now? And so I think that dance as a solo artist, for example, we talked about this once about, so during this time period of my life that I was kind of struggling a little bit because of all of these things that were going on, I started going to therapy, and my therapist told me that it's important that tact is so important to be in the present moment. And in my floor work, when I'm, you know, there and I start playing with my skirt a little bit, that's a sign that I'm here right now and I'm here with you. You know, it's touching and it's feeling, oh, okay. Like it's one thing that, people do to cope with anxiety of just touching something, feeling something like, okay, this feels like this and that. And then it helps you distract yourself and be present in the moment. And, I think that was one of those things that it kind of, the marriage between the fabrics and the fashion and the dance, it's kind of, for example, when you start dancing with a veil, right? Your movements all of a sudden become so much longer and so much more airy, right? Versus when you're with swords, totally different, right? Your body language changes. And so this language, obviously when we're dancing, we're not talking to them, which is one of those things that I think is beautiful about belly dance stories, that you give these dancers the opportunity to kind of present themselves. But generally speaking, we don't get to talk. Almost always the person that you're meeting on the street, you haven't given them the chance to talk to you, but who are they? You know, who are they? What are they representing? So I think that that's kind of where the marriage comes in between dance and fashion. It's this unspoken language.
And fashion is such a big part of belly dancing, right? Because that's probably one of the ways and tools that we use for expression also, and to get the attention, and to also kind of like what you're saying, like what I'm wearing already says a story about me without me even telling something, right? In words, I'm talking. So I love fashion. We hope you're enjoying the conversation so far.
We want to thank our sponsors, Heart Hips Mind by Sarah Chan, Kathy Lemise Martin, HCAB Studios, and Andre Gottlich.
Now let's get back to the conversation.
I was going to mention that, let me backtrack here because I wanted to touch before I forget about when we talked about feeling the skirt during your performance. And you had mentioned that story that you were going to a therapist and you were sitting down. You weren't even performing. We weren't even in class exactly. And then I go to you. I said, Isa, we need to use that in your performance because if anything, if you get nervous, that's going to be your safety net, you know, and to put you in that moment. And you know me, I'm all about being mindful in that moment, in that present moment. And using our senses is so important. In one of our previous podcasts with Jasenia, we also talked about sensuality, but more about the senses and feeling, hearing, versus getting too caught up in what we see, but more about in what we feel and what we hear. What we smell, maybe, what we touch is so important. So I wanted to say that was really good, important. It's a very special element. And sometimes when we perform, we do these things within our performance, but nobody really knows about them unless we're talking to somebody in a conversation or we're presenting, you know, our vision and the process. And it was, I was watching David Bowie, and it was he that said, artists love to talk about the process. They don't like to talk about, you know, the aftermath, we love to talk about the process. And I think that throughout your whole journey of your performance and your research, because you had research involved in this process, that tiny element of just fiddling with the skirt is powerful, and it can help someone, because we get nerves all the time performing. And back to the topic of fashion and belly dance, yeah, our costumes really, they are the impression for the audience, because we're not talking to them when we go and either perform in theaters, restaurants, birthdays, weddings. We don't get that chance. And it's that costume, that first glance that gives them, that impression of us, or us giving them a statement that this is how we want you to see us.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think that being in the present is something that's so important. And I personally, when I'm performing, I get like, okay, and then I start going faster and I get ahead of the music. And it was one of those things that kind of like stop and remind myself, like, I'm here, and I think it's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So now that we're talking about fashion and dance together, let's segue into that next question that we wanted to ask you. What inspires you to be a multidisciplined artist? Because that's something that I really relate to, and I know a lot of other people do, that they're not just one thing. And we wanted to know a little more what sparks that creativity in Isabella Villarroel.
Very good. Very good. Very good. You got it. Yeah. So I think that graduating high school and going into college, I don't know if you've seen B-Movie, but there's this scene where he's looking up at this giant TV with all of these possible careers. And he's like, how am I supposed to pick one? And I think that graduating high school is like that for so many people, of just, how am I supposed to decide right now in my 18 years of life what I want to do for the rest of my life? Like, I think it's just so huge. And I luckily knew from a very young age that I wanted to pursue fashion. But I think that my background in the creative arts as a whole really allowed me to kind of release a lot of my emotions and stuff through multiple areas without just defining on one. I did journalism in high school. I was always painting. I would do sculpting at home. I always liked to cook. I always liked to dance. There were so many avenues, and I was always like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I think that, what inspires me to do that and to kind of play with the different avenues is the fact that we are not one thing ever. Ever. You cannot be one thing, right? And I think that is something that is so worth exploring. The person that I can cater to in my paintings is not the same person that I cater to in my fashion. I personally want to explore bridal, which is something that is very, what inspires me about bridal is that it is so feminine and so elegant and it's so timeless. That is, one of the big things for me of I've been working at a bridal store for the past almost 4 years now, and I love my job. It's such a happy job, and I get to, what we had talked about. You put on your favorite dress one day, and your confidence, you're exuding this confidence, and you're walking out and you're presenting yourself to the world. When you're putting on your wedding dress, you are presenting yourself, to your daughter, to your granddaughter. Maybe, I look back at the pictures of my grandma on her wedding day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how funny. Why would she wear that? Like the different styles and the different trends that you see. And it's so interesting to me about it is the single most important dress you'll ever wear. And it holds so much value, whether you're a religious person, if you were more covered, or if you are more of a beachy kind of girl and you went on, did it, your whole wedding at the beach, and your dress kind of reflects that. It is the perfect reflection of the time period of your venue, of who you are, who you're marrying, and who do you want to be to your grandkids and to the future, And I think that it's such a beautiful thing. But I also find myself in this, I used to find myself in a big struggle, because my paintings, I love to use red, and I love to paint eyes, and I love the feminine form. And that's the one kind of continuity throughout all of my art. In dance, I fell in love with the feminine form, and I fell in love with mine, and I fell in love with everyone's. It was a deeper connection to our figure and how beautiful we are naturally, right? And then I have kind of displayed that into my different arts. Sculpture, I love to sculpt like just feminine forms, I think it's so beautiful and so meaningful. And then in my art, when I was a senior in high school, I did an exhibition. And that one was kind of exploring, I think it was called the deconstruction of the woman in society. And so it was a series of, I believe, 8 to 10 pieces. And it was starting with women, natural in nature, just very much vulnerable and filled with flowers and with, everything that the divine feminine, right? And throughout the collection, I went kind of deconstructing the woman based on society's eyes. So I incorporated a lot of just femininity with the eyes and how it kind of little by little deconstructs and deforms the woman because you are being looked at and you are being, criticized and all of these other things that stereotypically, like, what boxes do you check? What boxes do you not check? Let's judge you on that. I think I have always loved exploring the, femininity. But so in my paintings, for example, I like to get a little bit more wild with it. I've incorporated fabric into my pieces, ripping it up, and I just incorporate more of that wild woman, getting my hands a little bit dirty, playing around with color and all of that. But then it translates into my bridal designs, which are timeless and they're sleek and they are feminine. And I think that is where I get to really allow myself to explore everything and almost, what's it called? I get to just create in all the different avenues that I love to explore. Because I think, and making my collection was one of those times that I realized, wow, I can't, as I'm creating a bridal gown, I have to think about what's sellable, because at the end of the day, an artist, the hunger artist, we have to eat. So it was kind of like, okay, well, maybe if I want to do bridal, I can save that other wild woman creativity and that flame that I have and save that for belly dance, save that for painting, save that for sculptures and still have that release, that artistic release without worrying about a deadline, without worrying about what's sellable and that kind of thing.
The different avenues of releasing, and not having all these expectations that you need to put your creativity here or all of it in one basket, but that you give yourself like an alleviation. You're alleviated, you're released from the expectation, the anticipation of just putting it all in one place. And that's definitely important. I relate to that because that way I can focus on maybe my work and exploring, different things for my job because I need to. And then I can leave the rest, for being free and open with my creativity. And I think that helps a lot with creative blocks, what people call creative blocks, and not trying to give yourself other areas to explore and not put all your creativity in one place.
100%.
Play. Because I think from what I'm hearing from you also, it gives you the opportunity also to explore with different aspects of yourself that may come. One may come, like you're saying, through painting. I get to explore with this, but then through fashion design, there's other aspects that I am more interested to, and they're still part of you.
Yeah.
And I love that you explored the beauty, or that this is kind of like your thesis, I guess, as you keep going, that you're exploring the feminine, not just the beautiful belly dance and bridal, but even within those departments, the quote ugly possibly, but that's still something that can be beautiful, and that because that is humans, we are everything and nothing at the same time. So I really love that. I see that theme happening for you and in your thesis, and as you continue on in your journey exploring fashion and dancing and who knows what else you're going to be doing, because I could see you doing a lot of stuff and painting and photographing.
Yeah.
Isa, if you could give your younger self an advice, what would it be?
I think I would give myself the advice to not be so hard on myself and to kind of just trust the process a little bit. I think I've gotten into points in my life where I'm just like over planning and then I get stressed out when things don't go my way. I think that to my younger self, I would tell her it's going to be okay. You know, I think good things happen to good people. And as long as, you know, you're doing what you know is right, things will find you, you know? And I think just learning to love yourself and to embrace who you are instead of comparing yourself or trying to fit a specific box in society. I remember I talked to a life coach when I was probably like 14, 15, and she said, you are a circle trying to fit into a square. Mm-hmm. So she said, stop trying because you won't fit. And that's okay. And I think that's something that I think a lot of younger generations need to be okay with. You're not going to look like the influencer. You're not going to be, you know, this perfect person because that person doesn't exist. So it's kind of just learning to love yourself and getting to know yourself and truly just saying, I'm comfortable in my skin and I'm walking in here as me.
And it's good to be different.
Yeah.
It's important to be different too, to find who you are and also accept that you are going to continue evolving and adding to your plate and changing. And yeah. Well, what advice would you give to your future self?
To my future self, I would say, you know, try to keep working on not having too many expectations for things. I think expectations put a limit. They, you know, cap off up to where can this go? You know, I think just keeping everything very open and allowing things to develop and to just kind of unfold in front of you without saying, oh, I can't wait until I'm here. You know, once you get to here, you better have another plan to go way up there. And I think that just making sure to keep testing myself and keep pushing, because I think comfort is, it's nice to be there for a little bit, but it's always important to keep aiming higher and keep going higher.
It's balancing out that expectation, but not expectation. Uh-huh. So it's
Exactly.
It's not black and white, but it's kind of a tension. There's a little bit of tension there, which is good.
Definitely. Just kind of playing around a little bit with that. And I think it's important to just constantly be reminding ourselves to just like stop for a second and do something for you, you know, do something for yourself, you know, move around a little bit, explore, you know, go hug a tree. Mm-hmm. It's so necessary sometimes, and sometimes we don't see enough daylight. And I think it's important to just ground yourself every once in a while and remember, where do you come from? You know, who are you? Having that vision board is important to just kind of always go back to, where was I headed? You know, what's the idea? And I think that gentle reminder is what really helps kind of keep it all going.
Beautiful.
Super beautiful.
I think it's hard to not have expectations, but I think that's one of the biggest mysteries in life is how do we dance with that?
That is a good way to put it. That mystery in life, because I hear have expectations, have high expectations. And then sometimes I hear don't have that because then you're going to, you know, cut yourself off from actually doing. It's very difficult. That's why I said it's not black and white. But like you said, it's a dance in between the two. Have a little bit of tension, but also release. And it is a mystery. 100%. Yeah. That is a hard question, though. I know we threw that out there, but it was a hard question. I don't even know what I would say to my future self.
I would probably said what she said in the beginning to her young self.
Yeah.
Maybe the same?
Yeah, the same. There's a lot of things that we have to constantly remind ourselves. Constantly. Like, chill, relax. You got this.
Yeah.
It's good to be different. If this doesn't work, it's okay. So
that's true.
I would say that too. It's good to be different, and that we need more unique people to have a voice and
authentic.
to strengthen their voices and to open up, because you never know who is similar to you. And chances are there are many people similar, you know, to you in one way or another.
100%. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think one of the big things that I went through in high school, at least, was just kind of every time I would kind of go down a path that maybe wasn't what I had, I would just kind of like explore it a little bit, and then I'd be like, wait, and I would think of my younger self, and I'd be like, what would she think? Obviously we can't conform ourselves to the ideas of a 5-year-old, but what would she think? Am I satisfying what she wanted? Not necessarily, and I want to be a rock star, but in the idea of it all, what's behind it? What's the good intention behind it? And I think that our younger selves, we play, we were so used to just saying things to say them and exploring and not being so afraid of, what judgment we would get, And I think that making sure that younger self is proud of you and that you're going to look back and, it's just that kind of, like we were saying, like a little bit of a dance between the expectations and all that, it's hard to always be on the right path. I think it's impossible, but at the same time, is there really a right path? Is there a wrong path? You're just kind of on your path. And I think things will kind of go as they go. And, but I think that definitely just trying to, satisfy that younger self. And I think that kind of, I don't know, I'm like missing my words right now, but I think looking back at my younger self and saying, would she be proud of me right now? Mm-hmm. Would she be proud of the person that I'm becoming and the intentions behind the things that I do and all of that? Like, who am I, supporting right now? Who am I representing right now? And I think that that's something that throughout growing up, especially in high school, I would say sophomore year, second year of high school is when I really started to think about that. And I was like, gosh, I don't know, would she be proud of me right now? Like, am I doing the right thing for the right reasons right now? And I think about my younger self, and it was, I've always been a very smiley person, a very giggly and lighthearted and doing things for a good intention, And I don't think I've ever not done something for good intention, but I've definitely stopped myself in my tracks and just been like, are we doing the right thing for ourselves right now? Like, is this setting out the right impression,
And there's two people they say that in your life you need to make proud is your 8-year-old self and your 80-year-old self. And that, I'm not sure who said that, but that quote and that thought has really stuck with me. Yep.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, it's really neat. Those are the only two people you need to make proud of in your life at the end of the day.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Isa. Isa, you are wise beyond your years, and I say this all the time.
Totally. And I hope this conversation also inspire a lot of young people out there that can relate also to some of the struggles that you share with us. And I think I learned also a lot too from listening to you, and definitely you're so smart and wise for your age, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
Yes, we do.
Oh.
Yeah, you have a bright future. Yeah. You're going to Barcelona.
I am.
To study fashion.
Yeah. Wow, that's big.
Yeah, I'm getting my master's degree in bridal design. I
love Barcelona.
I'll take you with me.
Me too.
It's good to know that you're gonna be there.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm so excited. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know what the future will hold, but kind of going back to the whole expectations thing, I'm trying to just keep a very, very open mind and trying to not overthink things. I don't want to set up a high expectation, but I want to release high energy for myself and very positive energy for myself. And I just think about it and I say, I'm going to get over there and I'm going to do great. And I'm going to thrive and I'm going to love it. And I don't set up expectations for the physical things, but expectations for my feelings. I set up expectations for, okay, I'm going to get there and I'm going to feel so good. Maybe I'll cut my hair again. And and I'm just going to do something so much, I'm going to be doing something that I'm going to look back on and I'm going to love, instead of setting the expectation for, the classes are going to be this, or the professors are going to be like this, or maybe I'll get a job like this, or, it's more an expectation of the feeling than the actual physical, if that makes sense.
That was beautiful because you also entwined advice for people your age young people or people who are coming into college or that age where they're thinking about college and their future. And I think you entwined that beautifully.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, yeah, I'm here if anyone else is going to Barcelona or college at all. I'm happy to give any advice. I'm around, whatever. But thank you so much, ladies, for having me. I had such a good time talking to you, and hopefully we can do it again.
I thank you. We shall see. Maybe when you come back, we'll recap and see if you danced and if you did projects and got famous.
Who knows?
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isa.
Thank you for joining us on the Belly Dance Stories podcast. Ready to write your story with us? Send them to our email, bellydancestories@gmail.com.
Visit our website for the latest news about our production at bellydancestories.com. And remember that you can follow us on Instagram at bellydance_stories. And remember,
let your body speak loud and beautiful.